Well, howdy and welcome everyone to another episode of the Lauren Musica Show, your favorite update in the battle for life, family, and freedom. So excited to have you with me once again. I'm Lauren Musica, attorney and human rights advocate, and I serve as president and CEO of Sidewalk Advocates for Life, the nation's largest peaceful sidewalk outreach organization. I'm betting we can all agree on this thought. America will not become abortion-free unless we win the rising generation. Young millennials and Gen Z are the future of any movement, and they are not like your grandma's baby boomer generation, as cool as the baby boomers were. We're not dissing grandma today, okay? They are markedly different. That's why I wanted to have a robust conversation about how we actually win the younger generation with a dear friend, a woman who is arguably the leader of the pro-life youth movement in America, Kristan Hawkins of Students for Life of America. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Kristan Hawkins is CEO of the Pro-Life Generation and president of Students for Life of America and Students for Life Action. Since 2006, Kristan has spent nearly 2 decades building a national network of more than 1,475 campus Students for Life groups that has trained more than 200,000 young people in all 50 states. Wow. Under her leadership, Students for Life of America has become the largest pro-life youth organization in the world, and Students for Life Action has grown into a force to be reckoned with on Capitol Hill and in state houses nationwide. Kristan has her own podcast called Explicitly Pro-Life, where she has interviewed leaders such as Riley Gaines, Dennis Prager, and Charlie Kirk. She will also be launching a new weekly news show, which will be airing in the fall, The Kristan Hawkins Show. Her writings and interviews frequent the New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, and NPR. As a frequent speaker and media analyst, Kristan's expertise includes abortion, feminism, disability advocacy, and healthcare. She navigates the social conditions and public policy that impact the human rights issues of our day. Let's go ahead and welcome to the show, Kristan Hawkins.
Hey, Lauren, thanks for having me.
So good to have you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your crazy busy schedule to be with me. So again, I think anyone who's pro-life knows who you are, but in case some folks don't know who you are, go ahead and tell us, who is Kristan Hawkins and how did you come to lead really the world's greatest youth pro-life movement?
Yeah, and if you're wondering, no, I'm not a student, but thank you for all the love of my skincare. No, I got involved in the pro-life movement when I was 15. I started volunteering at a local pregnancy help center in my hometown. And it was a simple ask. I was asked from a woman at my church, would you like to come volunteer with me? And I said, yes, sure. Not fully knowing what I was getting myself into. I think that's how God keeps most of my yeses in my life. And so that's really where I fell headfirst into the pro-life movement, really learning. I knew I should be against abortion because I was a Christian, but if you would have asked me at 15 how I felt about abortion, I would have definitely been like one of the students we meet all the time on campuses. I don't like abortion, but that's at the pregnancy center, though, my whole life changed because that's really where I came face to face with women who had been wounded time and time again and lied to by the abortion industry, who had thought that, having the abortion was going to solve all of their problems. Yet they found themselves pregnant again with the same abusive boyfriend in the same position. Right. And from there, that's where God just broke my heart on the issue of abortion. And I just started looking for, how can we get involved? How can I get involved at 15? And with starting a pro-life group in my high school, getting involved in local politics. I was the youngest person there by like 5 decades, to my county Republican chapter. But that's how I got involved. And from there, it just, the Holy Spirit led me further and further, eventually to Washington, D.C., where we launched Students for Life. But who am I today? I'm just honored to lead all of these young people. There's about almost 1,500 chapters of Students for Life on colleges and high schools, even to med and law schools and some middle schools. We have Students for Life Action, which then takes the young people that were inspiring and gets them active, particularly at the state capitals, in state legislative races. What we're doing with our campaign for abortion-free cities, with our alumni, getting them active, going door to door, educating neighbors about local pregnancy resource centers. And I'm also a mom, a wife, and a puppy mom. So yeah, that's who I am.
I love it. And I have to say, you and Students for Life are one of my biggest inspirations. I remember walking into the room, this big ballroom just before a Students for Life conference, and there were like 3,000 plus empty chairs in there that were about to be filled by students. And I had a moment where I looked at the room and I said, this is how we're going to win. This is why we're going to win. And I truly believe that Students for Life has been such an integral part of culture change around this issue and beyond. It's so breathtaking. It really is. Kristan, Planned Parenthood is so obviously gunning for our youth. They are trying to sell them the mirage of consequence-free sex or a new sexual or gender identity. A lot of folks don't know that Planned Parenthood, at least the latest that I looked at, is the second largest provider of so-called transgender hormone therapy. What do you think is the remedy to this? How do we win the youth back from the abortion industry?
Well, I think, a lot of it is being there, right? I think sometimes we assume, okay, all the young people are against us. They're pro-choice. They're the least church generation. I mean, stats prove that. And we don't even try. I mean, I see this a lot with Republican politicians. And even now we're in the midst of a political campaign where I'm like, are you even trying to get young people to vote for you? Have you reached out to them? Where are your youth surrogates, right? I think a key thing is just being there. I mean, was our fundamental premise when we launched Students for Life 18 years ago, was we're going to go where the abortion industry is, right on college campuses. We're going to go right on social media. Anywhere they are, we want to be there. And we're going to be speaking truth. That doesn't mean we're going to be able to change the minds of every single person that we reach. We change the minds about 10% of young people we reach in person every semester, and about 18 to 24% of those we reach online. It's a good number, not good enough, but we keep improving our craft, our skill, right? But we're there leaving those kind of seeds of truth in their minds, those doubts that hopefully next time abortion comes up, or if they find themselves in an unplanned crisis pregnancy situation, or a friend does, they can remember something they've seen. They can remember something they saw on social media, or that they passed by on their campuses. And I think that's important, is just showing up and being there in the fight. Because, I mean, naturally, think about the progression, like the insanity we saw at the DNC. Like, kids don't grow up saying they support abortion or that they want abortion to be in. You ask a young child, you ask my children, right? My 9-year-old, my 10-year-old about abortion, try to explain to them what abortion is. And they're like aghast that somebody would do this to a baby, right? Like, you have to make someone become pro-choice. You use confusing arguments, you use a situation. It takes time and effort on their part to convert young people into pro-choice, pro-abortion voters and activists. And so if we're there and we can stop that from happening, especially like in the high schools, if we can stop that from happening, that's game over for them. And that's why, they attack us, obviously, because they understand, just as what you've said, any movement needs these young people. Any successful movement needs these young people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's that natural law, like you're saying, young children instinctively know abortion is wrong. And somewhere along the line, there's this twisting. And I see you guys kind of constantly going onto college campuses and just untwisting these lies, right? And bringing them back to what they know to be true in their hearts, what's written on their hearts. And again, it's so interesting to watch. And quite often we see woundedness, right? A lot of times that starts in college with getting into maybe an unhealthy relationship or whatever it is. And I just love that, like you said, you guys are there. You're there to journey with them and to show them that, hey, get back to what you knew to be true. right? Pointing them back to truth. So good. Speaking of college campuses, I feel like every time I look you up, you're like on a tour somewhere. You're touring all these college campuses, kind of Ben Shapiro style, although you do hold your own, right? Your videos blow my mind. You go into these rooms quite often. You're already met with these crazy protests, people yelling at you, sometimes trying to kick you off campus so you can't even speak. What do you think the crux issue or sickness really is? What kind of witness do you hope for more specifically on college campuses to counter this so that you can even have a dialogue with people about
Sure.
this?
Well, I think it's important that we go there. And yes, they get all stirred up when we're there. And that's actually a good thing. I think sometimes people
Yeah.
think that it's a bad thing, or people feel sorry for me that I'm going there. I don't feel sorry for me. I mean, you can feel sorry for my family and my husband who reads the death threats or whatever, but that's what we want. We want there to be debate and dialogue because they will win when they silence us on this issue, right? Just,
Mm,
just like what we've been saying with this political cycle. Democrats win when Republicans are silent on the issue of abortion. When you stop talking about it, they win. And so we want there to be discussion. We want there to be debate. I want there to be op-eds, condemning my appearance because I want students who are genuinely interested in hearing another side to come and listen and to be willing to dialogue and maybe even debate and maybe have their minds changed. And so I think that's important. And I think, when I think about even some of the stuff that we've started seeing, like in the UK and France, and some of the past statements from Tim Walz and Kamala Harris are actually pretty alarming, because when you think about the future of our movement, it's predicated on access to free speech, which
yes.
our friends in Canada who do student pro-life organizing on campuses, they don't actually have a guarantee to free speech. Our students that we've worked with in Canada, I mean, I had a student try to almost get expelled for wearing a pro-life T-shirt on their person. I mean, there is no guarantee of free speech in Canada. And what we started to see, even with the new UK Prime Minister, saying that they're going to start monitoring social media, even of non-British citizens, and they can be arrested. Like Elon Musk could be arrested. Like, I mean, it's crazy stuff. And I think
Mhm.
it's so important that we keep pushing that needle, pushing that on free speech. And I think that's very, very important to this movement, because if we don't have free speech, we don't have a movement, because they want us to be completely silent about the violence of abortion. So I'm happy to continue going back to campuses. I think the thing that scares me more is when I go to campuses and kids just ignore the issue. I'll be tabling,
Uh,
and the pro-choice movement has already sent out an email or done an op-ed saying, just ignore the pro-lifer on campus. We don't want any conversation about
mm.
abortion on this campus. And then folks listen. Well, that's not good, because we can't change any minds if we're not having a discussion about abortion.
Yeah, yeah. It is such a good point. My old boss, David B. Wright, the founder of 40 Days for Life, he used to say that we must create the constructive tension needed for abortion to
Yep, that's
end.
right.
And he would say, when I go to an abortion facility, even, I am much more encouraged by the worker who's angry, who's struggling, the client who's angry, who's struggling,
Mhm.
rather than the one who's indifferent, right? Because that's really the bigger concern, is somebody who just washes their hands of it and is not willing to even have the dialogue. Such a good
Right.
point. Um, Talk to us a little bit about Gen Z. Like, I feel like this is such an interesting generation. I think you're in the same boat, although I know I'm at least a few years older than you. I'm an old millennial. I think we kind of get millennials at this point, but Gen Z is a really interesting generation.
Mm.
How would you describe them, and what are a couple tips for winning them on the life issue?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm an older millennial too. An elder millennial is how we refer to ourselves. Sometimes as exennial, which I will accept better than elder millennial.
I'll claim that too.
But
Yeah.
the Gen Zs, I don't understand their language. My staff makes
Hmm.
funny videos of me trying to understand the words that they use. That now my 10-year-old, now I hear him using. I'm like, crap, I think I'm supposed to know that word. But um, I think, they are extremely entrepreneurial. If
Hmm.
you saw this a couple of years ago, where the number one job that these young people who at the time were in high school saw themselves seeking or wanted was that they wanted to be social media influencers. So
Hmm.
they don't believe in the same old, I guess, power structure. I mean, every generation, youth generation, is like that to some degree, but they understand and they've seen it in real time how one person posting a video has changed the trajectory of our country or has totally transformed a conversation. So they understand that they can make a real difference. And I think all of that, that entrepreneurial spirit, wanting to be these thought leaders on their own right, using their social media accounts, wanting to change the world, that's all great stuff that we have to continue to encourage them in, while at the same time mentoring them, right? I think the downside of Gen Z and the scary part of Gen Z is that they are the least church generation.
Hmm.
I've started to see this on campuses, and it's been particularly alarming. I actually met with a friend who's a Catholic philosophy, theology person, expert, I don't know what you call her, teacher, about this the other day, because it's a question. This is the first time when we're on campuses now, even Gen 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 Y and Gen X, if you would ask them, does human life have value? For the
Yeah.
most part, they would say yes, human life has value. Now, they would disagree. If they were pro choice, they would disagree and say, well, it's not a human yet in the womb, right?
Hmm.
It's not full human personhood. Stuff hasn't really happened. And then you can have your like little abortion debate after that.
Yeah.
This generation, I started seeing it during COVID, particularly, and it's gotten substantially worse. It scares me more than anything. They don't believe humans have value. Like,
Mm.
you will have a conversation. Now, do they live their life that way? Probably not, right? If they saw
Right.
somebody in a burning car down the street, even if they didn't know that person, even if it was at great risk to themselves, I tend to believe they'll probably go try to rescue the person in the burning car. But when you're having this intellectual conversation with them, it is so much more difficult, because when you try to back up the conversation about abortion, say, let me just pause it now. Do you have it? I believe you have value. You, as a
Yeah.
21-year-old student, you have innate value and dignity, and you have a purpose on this earth. Do you believe every person is like that? And many of them can't say yes. And I
Wow.
think that is really scary, because how are you going to change their minds about abortion, right? This innocent human that's super tiny and small, that they can't see, that they don't have a familial relationship with. How are you going to convince them that that human in the womb has value if they don't believe they have value? And a lot of it goes to a lack of just Christian or worldview, Judeo-Christian grounding. My generation wasn't certainly well known for their church attendance, but like our grandmothers drug us to VBS, right? Or everybody, even my friends who had like the craziest parents in high school, whose parents didn't drag them to church 3 times a week like mine did, they
Yeah.
all knew the Christian narrative. They all knew the story that there's a God who created the universe, sent his son to die on the cross. They kind of knew that. Whether they believed it was one thing, but they knew it. This
Yeah.
this generation, you can't make that assumption that they even know that.
Interesting. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I need to sit
Sorry,
and
deep
think on that. Like,
thoughts.
how
It's
do you
that's what
get
keeps
I
me
mean,
up at night.
so you almost have to start with the person in front of you and talk about their value and kind of dial back. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what, and that, and I'm a metrics person, so I'm always like, how many conversations do we have? How many minds do we change? That
Yeah.
makes it a little slower when you're
Yeah.
on campus. And I mean, you can appeal to universal human rights and anti-violence principles, which this generation is very much steeped into, right? They
Yeah.
they came of age during the Black Lives Matter riots and things like that. So you can
Mm.
appeal to things like that. But it's a trend that we've noticed that isn't getting better. And
Yeah.
that's certainly concerning, because I mean, not even when you think about these defenseless, innocent human beings and these young people's views on abortion, but this
Mm.
shapes all of their views, right? Like if you see the stats now where it's like by 2030, 40% of women are going to be single, childless. And that number is like going to skyrocket, right? And you start having these
Yeah.
conversations with people who are saying like, oh, if you have children, you're a selfish bastard. You shouldn't have children, right? And now like there's like this whole theology now of being single and like how it's the right thing to do.
Mhm.
All of that stuff is going to get way worse. And if you've got a nation of single people who aren't married, who aren't parents, adoptive parents, spiritual parents,
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, JD Vance wasn't wrong when he said that changes how you view policies.
Absolutely. That is so fascinating. Wow. Yeah. Getting your mind around that. People more concerned maybe about their carbon footprint, right? Or just having kind of unadulterated freedom to do whatever they want and not be chained down to something, right? Instead of seeing the
Yep, that's right.
value in life and family and all of that. There you go. Coming back
Sacrifice.
to that word value. That is so interesting. Kristan, in the time we have remaining, I want to back out just a little bit and ask you kind of a couple global questions. I'm really curious as far as your answer on these two questions. Post Roe America, did you ever think that Roe would be overturned? And how do you see us? What's the best path forward from going from post Roe to abortion free?
Yeah, been something I've been thinking about for about 18 years. Um, and I wish I had, the solid bulletproof answer, but I don't. No, absolutely. I believe Roe versus Wade was going to be reversed. That's why we set up Students for
Mhm.
Life the way we did, to be able to mobilize. Because I think one of the tragic things that we're seeing right now in these state ballot referendums was most people didn't think Roe was going to be reversed. And
Yeah.
we don't have state entities who have the ability at this point to fight back at the
Mhm.
level of the abortion lobby and the state ballot referendums. And we're going to lose a lot of them because
Yeah.
we weren't ready and we didn't have that grassroots ready. Just ask my staff and the amount of time and calls that have come into us since Roe's been reversed. Because if you need someone to show up at the state capitol or something urgently, there's one group you can call in the pro life movement. That's us. And I'm not saying that to be boastful. That is not a good thing, right?
Yeah,
We need
absolutely.
lots of us.
Mm,
We need lots of activists who are trained and mobilized and ready to go. It can't
yeah.
just be us. And so I think, I don't think a lot of folks were ready. And we saw that in some of the news interviews after Roe was reversed. Some of my friends even publicly admitted they didn't think Roe was going to be reversed. And I found that to be alarming. What do we do, and what should we be doing now? Because we all knew, and the way we prepared our students leading up to the Dobbs decision, we were very real with the student leaders we serve that this is going to get tougher. You're going to
Yeah.
face more fights on your campuses. It's going to get more violent. Here's our email, our phone number for our legal helpline. It's going to get more discriminatory towards you.
Mm,
And it's all of that has happened, right? It's even gotten worse politically. I think it's been very disappointing. I think for younger pro-life activists who came to age politically, always knowing a pro-life GOP, to now start seeing the GOP do what politicians do, which is walk back something when they don't think it's politically popular. And that's been very demoralizing for younger
mm,
pro-lifers, where the older pro-life leaders are like, what are you talking about? This is how we endured years of this, decades of this in the
right.
past. And so we're
Mm,
trying to, paint that picture of, we marched forward despite the setbacks. And we knew the devil was obviously not going to take the defeat of Roe lying down. And we
yeah.
saw that on full display at the DNC and all the speeches at the DNC. The devil is mad. Moloch wants his babies. Like, it is
Yeah.
very clear. So, what do we need to do? I think the number one thing, and the research I've been doing, and the books I've been reading have been a lot of civil rights history books,
Mm,
online symposiums of civil rights experts. Because one of the things I've been questioning is, do civil rights experts feel that the civil rights movement was a success? And
mm,
it kind of depends. If you thought that the civil rights movement's goal was to pass the Civil Rights Act in 1963, then you think it was a success. The bill is passed, goal was done. Most civil rights experts today and of the past will say it was largely a failure, because they had this passage of the bill. Then you had the assassinations, you had all this political turmoil in the 1960s, and the civil rights movement faded away. They stopped
mm,
recruiting, they stopped training. And a lot of the, civil rights historians and activists today say, wait a minute, we left a lot of things unsolved within our society, a lot of inequity unsolved and unaddressed. And I think that is the number one thing for us.
Yeah.
Despite the setbacks, despite the defeats we're facing right now, and we are going to face in November, I think we need to mentally and spiritually prepare ourselves for that.
Mm.
Despite that, we have to keep moving forward, because the side that will win will be the side that has the most trained active army. So the two things we have to keep doing is recruiting and training. And we're going to take our lumps and we're going to take our defeats, and it's going to go like this. But at the end of the day, whoever has the most people organized will win. They will not be able to defeat us. And I'm not even going to get into the spiritual realm. They can't defeat us anyway, right?
Yeah.
But they can't defeat us, because we will refuse to go away. What they're hoping right now, with all the mainstream media articles coming out about, oh, Trump's betraying the pro-life movement, and Trump saying some things that we don't agree with, right? Their goal is to suppress the pro-life movement. Their goal is to get pro-lifers to say, you know what, I'm throwing in the towel. It's done. We had this victory and now we're losing. That's what they want more than anything. This is just like how they act on campuses. They want us to sit down and shut up, because darkness only thrives in the dark. Us being the stubborn, gritty, pro-life movement that we are is the reason we saw Roe defeated. It took 49 years. And many of those years, if you look back and with a historic, this history buff lens, you would see that a lot of those years would have been seen as political defeats. But we kept going forward. I think that's the most important thing, is we keep recruiting, we keep training, and we keep setting these people out to do whatever it is God has called them to do.
Yeah. Amen. So powerful. Everybody chew on that for a little bit. Just in closing here, do you have a prediction? I mean, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but do you have like a definitive prediction on the outcome of this election? And what do we need to be doing today to elect pro-life candidates?
Yeah, I'm very fearful for the state of the ballot referendums. Especially when you think about, Florida, which is probably our best chance of winning because that 60 vote threshold. They also have a marijuana legalization on the ballot, and they did that on purpose, right? They're going to drive out people to vote for marijuana legalization. That's exactly what they did in Ohio. The playbook remains the same. I do believe we'll lose most of those battles. We simply don't have, I found out a week and a half ago, there's no yard signs in any of the states. There's like two states have yard signs.
Oh my goodness.
So we're making yard signs at Students for Life. So we're making, if you go to abortionballot.org, you can order your yard sign for your state. We made a generic vote no on late-term abortion in your constitution yard sign, because pro-life movement needs yard signs. We're going to make yard signs. That's just like one tiny, not saying that like yard signs win a political battle, but that's just one tiny example of, we don't have what we need in place to fight all of these battles at one time. So we are going to suffer defeats. Now, I think, and I know, and history showed at the height of Roe versus Wade's power, we as a pro-life movement were able to see the Carhart decision. We were able to end, a specific type of gruesome type of abortion. With chemical abortion pills, which you all have seen, you've been talking a lot about this, Lawrence Sawick Advocates, which is the leading cause of baby's death in our country. We can impact these chemical abortion pills in our states, because they're polluting our water. They're being shipped illegally into our states. Sex predators and rapists have access to these drugs. So even if your state passes one of these ballot referendums, I'm here to tell you, there is a lot we are still going to be able to do in your state while we work to reverse what has happened. So I don't have high hopes for some of the ballot referendums. I pray that I am wrong. And I think we need to be in prayer about this every single day. But I think we need to get active. We need pro-lifers across the country. Whether you've been involved in the battle before or not, this is your call to get involved. Like if you go to abortionballot.org, we have made simple flyers that you can put your own organization logo on. I don't care. That's your state ballot referendum text, redlined out what's wrong with it, how deceiving it is, that just print it out, download it out, and print it and go door knocking. Give it to everybody in your parish. Give it to everybody at work. This is an all hands on deck situation that we have. So I don't know how the presidential election is going to go.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to
Fair.
happen? That remains to be seen. At one point, it was Trump's, campaign to lose, and somehow I feel like he's achieving that at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I pray that I'm wrong, and I pray that President Trump is reelected, and because babies' lives are at stake. And even though I've been disappointed by some of the things that President Trump has said, he is hands down going to be 100% better as president of the United States than Kamala Harris, who has tried to literally shut down the pregnancy center movement, has tried to, and her administration is imprisoning grandmas for praying in front of abortion. It's unbelievable what they're doing. And so I think we need to be united on that in the pro-life movement, but I don't know how it's going to go. But I know regardless of what happens, the next day we're going to be there. We're going to be there on campuses. We're going to continue building the army for that ultimate victory.
So good. So good, Kristan. Well, I think you guys are just the epitome of what it means to show up and to stand up, and I just personally thank you too, that sometimes when there's been gaps in the pro-life movement and we sometimes haven't known how to respond efficiently, that you guys are like, all right, well, we're going in, we're going to be there. We're going to figure this out. And your leadership has been a great inspiration to so many people. So again, thank you, Kristan, so much for being with us. We look forward to bringing you on the show again and doing a follow-up probably after the election. We'll see how this goes, right?
That's right. Congrats on the new show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. All right, bye-bye. So good. Oh my goodness. So much to pray about there. So much to think about, right? It is so essential that we get this right when it comes to the rising generation. We've got to capture the hearts of Millennials and Gen Zs. And I guess the one that's coming after that, I don't even know the name of it, right? But we need to be at the ready with education and with heart to win them to the greatest human rights movement on earth. Isn't that true? All right. Well, in closing, here's just something to think about, especially as we contemplate how the other side is trying to win our youth over to a false identity. So speaking of false identities, where do you find your identity and security? In this day and age, we can be tempted to find our value in our career or financial success or status, or perhaps a relationship status, appearance, academics, or reputation. These may feel like solid foundations, but the truth is none of them are permanent. Any of them could change without warning, and we surely can't take any of these with us to the other side. If we base our identity on things like success, wealth, power, physical appearance, and so on, we're setting our foundation on shifting sand and setting a dangerous precedent. A sudden job loss could leave us questioning our choices in life, and our appearance is surely going to change as we get older. Even in the pro-life movement, I see when it comes to sidewalk advocacy that sometimes we're tempted to find our worth, our success in how many saves we have, right? Or how successful we are in winning that one worker out of the industry. But even that's dangerous because success is then based on another person's free response, plus factors that can definitely impact our outreach on the sidewalk. God, however, offers us a different way. He is unchanging. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if we find our identity in him, we will never be disappointed because we know who he is and what he's about. And that's timeless. And the divine sonship that he gives us when we say yes to him, we're given a new solid identity. 2 Corinthians 5:17 tells us, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old is gone. The new is here. So just as a reminder, and I don't mean to be cheesy in saying this, but it's so true. And I'm pretty sure that somebody listening to this needs to hear this. You are loved. You are chosen. You are enough as you are. Remember that going to the sidewalk, that we don't need to dress up in fancy costumes or do weird things, that it's enough to pray. It's enough to reach out and love. It's powerful enough. And he, God, is our firm, unchanging foundation. Again, just something to think about. All right. Well, with that, thank you again so much for joining me for another episode of the Lauren Musica Show. We'll be back here next Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central on Facebook Live, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you next Friday.